He still remembered the exact sound of the phone ringing that night. Not the ringtone itself, but the silence around it. The way the apartment felt too big, too quiet, like it was waiting for him to choose wrong. And he did. 25 years later, Daniel Mercer sat alone in a small rented house outside Columbus, Ohio, staring at a kitchen table that had seen better days. The wood was scratched, coffee rings burned into the surface like old scars. His hands were steady now, but they hadn't always been. Back then, they used to shake every time he thought about that night. Now they just went numb. On the table sat a folded newspaper, untouched. Next to it, a hospital bill he couldn't afford, and above it all, like a ghost he refused to look at directly, was the memory he had never told a soul. He was 27 then, not old enough to understand consequences the way he should have. Old enough to believe time always gave second chances. It didn't. That night, he had a choice. Answer the phone, or let it go to voicemail. He let it go. Back then, Daniel lived in a cramped apartment in Dayton. 2 jobs, barely sleeping, always tired in that deep bone-level way that makes people stop dreaming without noticing. His phone rang at 11:43 p.m. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something made him look at it longer than he should have. That tiny hesitation, that fraction of a pause, was the first crack in everything that came after. The voicemail notification popped up minutes later. He didn't listen right away. Instead, he went back to what he was doing, heating leftover food, watching the microwave numbers count down, like they mattered more than anything else. When he finally checked the voicemail at 1:18 a.m., his life had already changed. He just didn't know it yet. The message was short. A strained voice. Breath uneven. Background noise like wind or sirens. "Danny? It's Mark. I need you to pick up, man. It's bad. Please." Then static. That was it. No explanation. No clarity. Just a name from his past, pulling him back into something he had tried to bury. Mark Sullivan. His best friend once. The kind of friend who knows things about you that no one else ever will. And the kind of friend you abandon slowly, without realizing it. Daniel sat there, replaying the voicemail twice, then 3 times. He told himself it was nothing serious. Mark always sounded dramatic, always in trouble, always calling when things were already spiraling. Daniel deleted the message the next morning. That was the decision, not the call. The deletion. 3 days later, someone came to his apartment. A woman he didn't recognize at first. Black coat, red eyes, the kind of face that doesn't belong to a stranger. It belongs to bad news. She asked if he was Daniel Mercer. He nodded. Then she said Mark's name, and everything inside him went cold before she even finished the sentence. There had been an accident, a late-night crash on Highway 35. Police reports, delayed response, bad timing, wrong place, wrong moment. And Mark had called him right before it happened. Not once. 3 times. Daniel had never answered any of them. The woman handed him something before leaving. A folded note recovered from Mark's wallet. Smudged, partially burned at the edges, like it had survived something it shouldn't have. Daniel didn't open it right away. He couldn't, because somehow, deep down, he already knew what it would say. And he was terrified he was right. He sat on his apartment floor that night, the note shaking in his hands, knowing that whatever was inside it wasn't just words. It was the moment his life stopped moving forward. He just didn't realize it yet. Not fully. Not until he opened it, and saw his own name written in Mark's handwriting. Daniel stared at the note for a long time without opening it. His apartment felt different now. Not physically. Nothing had changed, but the air itself seemed heavier, like it had absorbed something he couldn't clean out. Mark's name kept echoing in his head. 3 calls, 3 chances, all ignored. His thumb finally broke the seal. The paper was creased like it had been folded and unfolded too many times in a rush. The ink was uneven, smudged in places where sweat or rain, or maybe blood, had blurred the words. He read slowly at first, then faster, and then he stopped breathing without realizing it. "Danny, if you're reading this, I didn't make it." The room tilted slightly. Daniel gripped the edge of the table, just to stay anchored. "I tried calling you. I don't know if you were busy or if you just didn't pick up. Doesn't matter now, I guess." A pause in the writing. A hesitation in ink, like Mark had stopped mid-thought. There's something I need you to know. Something I should have told you years ago. Daniel swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry, like he hadn't spoken in days. The words continued. That night back in 2001, when everything went down with your brother. Daniel stopped reading. His brother. He hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in years. Not since the funeral. Not since everything collapsed into silence and blame and unanswered questions. His hands started shaking. He forced himself to continue. Back then, 2001 wasn't just a year. It was the year everything broke. His younger brother, Ethan Mercer, had died in what was officially labeled an overdose. But nothing about it ever sat right with Daniel. Not the timing. Not the people involved. Not the way Mark had suddenly gone quiet afterward. And not the way Daniel had chosen distance instead of answers. He had walked away from Mark slowly after that. Not a fight. Not a final moment. Just silence stretched over months until it became permanent. He told himself it was self-preservation. Now, 25 years later, it felt more like abandonment. Daniel forced his eyes back to the letter. Ethan didn't die the way they said he did. The sentence hit harder than anything before it. Daniel stood up so fast his chair scraped backward. No, he whispered, though there was no one to hear him. He kept reading. I didn't tell you because I was scared. Because I thought I could fix it. I thought I had time. The handwriting became messier. But I was there that night. I saw who he was with. I know what happened before everything went wrong. Daniel's chest tightened. The room felt too small now. Like the walls were slowly closing in. He sat back down, but his legs barely held him. Outside, a car passed slowly on the street. Normal life continuing somewhere else. Completely unaware that a man inside a small Ohio house was watching his past open itself like a wound. Daniel read the next line 3 times before it made sense. They didn't just let it happen. Someone helped it happen. Silence. No sound. No movement. Just the hum of an old refrigerator in the corner and the steady, violent beating of Daniel's heart. He flipped the page even though there wasn't one. Only one more line at the bottom. Smaller. Pressed in like an afterthought. Or a warning. If anything happens to me, don't trust the report. Look into Riverside Clinic. Ask for Dr. Halverson. Daniel's hand dropped. The paper slipped from his fingers onto the floor. For the first time in 25 years, the regret he had carried didn't feel like memory anymore. It felt like the beginning of something that never actually ended. And somewhere deep in his mind, one thought formed clearly. Cold and unavoidable. Mark hadn't just died. He had been trying to be heard. And Daniel had missed every call. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat in the same chair, the note still on the floor where it had fallen, like he was afraid picking it up again would make it worse, as if it could change shape depending on how long he looked at it. Riverside Clinic, Dr. Halverson. The words looped in his head until they stopped feeling like names and started feeling like warnings. At 4:12 a.m., he finally moved, not because he felt ready, because staying still felt worse. The first thing he did was dig through a box he hadn't opened in years. It was shoved under his bed, like something he didn't want to admit existed. Old photos, paperwork, a life that belonged to someone who used to believe things would work out. At the bottom was what he was looking for. A worn photo. 3 people standing outside a high school football game in late autumn. Daniel in the middle, Mark on his left, Ethan on his right. All of them smiling in a way that didn't know what was coming. Daniel stared at Ethan's face longer than the others. Same eyes. Same stubborn tilt of the chin. Still 18 forever in a way the world didn't care about. His thumb rubbed over the photo like it could smooth the past. It didn't. By morning he had made a decision he didn't fully understand yet. He drove. The car was older than it should have been, the engine rattling like it resented being used. He didn't fix the noise. It matched his mood too well. Columbus traffic faded behind him as he headed toward Dayton, then further south, toward whatever was left of answers. Riverside Clinic wasn't hard to find. It was the kind of place people stop noticing even when they drive past it every day. Small, aging, too clean in the wrong ways, like it had been scrubbed to hide something instead of maintain it. Daniel sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes before getting out. His hands hovered over the steering wheel. This is stupid, he thought. Mark is gone. This won't change anything. But another thought followed immediately after. Then why did he leave it? Inside, the waiting room smelled like disinfectant and old paper. A receptionist looked up. Can I help you? Daniel hesitated. I'm looking for records. From 2001, a patient named Ethan Mercer. Her fingers paused on the keyboard. That's a long time ago, she said carefully. I know. She studied him for a moment longer than necessary, then nodded slowly. You'll need to speak to administration. Down the hall, every step Daniel took felt like it was being measured by something unseen, like the building itself remembered more than it should. Administration was quieter. A man in his late 50s looked up from a desk stacked with files that should have been digitized years ago, but weren't. What exactly are you looking for? Daniel swallowed. My brother's file. Ethan Mercer, 2001. I was told there might be something missing. The man's expression tightened slightly at the word missing. Medical records are confidential. I'm next of kin, Daniel said quickly. He's dead. I just want the truth. A long pause. Then the man leaned back in his chair. You're not the first person to ask about that year. That sentence landed heavier than Daniel expected. What does that mean? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood and walked to a locked cabinet behind him. Keys. Metal. A slow turn. He pulled out a thin folder. Not thick like a full medical history. Thin like something removed. He placed it on the desk but didn't open it. You should understand something before you look at this, he said. Daniel's throat tightened. Understand what? The man met his eyes. That file was partially sealed by order of Dr. Halverson himself. The room went quiet. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Daniel's voice dropped. Why would a doctor seal my brother's file? The man hesitated, then finally said the words that changed the shape of everything Daniel thought he knew. Because your brother wasn't just a patient. He was part of something we were told never to discuss. Daniel stared at the folder. His hand moved toward it slowly, like it belonged to someone else. But before he touched it, the lights in the hallway flickered once. And somewhere deeper in the building, a phone started ringing. Long, sharp, insistent. The receptionist looked up from her desk. That line hasn't been used in years, she whispered. The man across from Daniel went pale, and Daniel realized something that made his stomach drop. Someone knew he was here, and they were calling to make sure he didn't open that file. The ringing didn't stop. It echoed through the hallway like it was coming from inside the walls rather than a phone. Daniel didn't move. Neither did the man across the desk. It was the receptionist who finally stood up first, slowly, like she was afraid sudden movement might trigger something worse. I thought that line was disconnected, she said again, quieter this time. The administrator's jaw tightened. It was, but the phone kept ringing anyway. Daniel's eyes stayed locked on the folder. Thin, ordinary, innocent looking. But now it felt like it was sitting on top of something alive. Open it, Daniel said, his voice lower than he expected. The administrator didn't respond. Another ring, then another. Finally, the man reached out, not to open the folder, but to slide it back toward the locked cabinet. I can't give you this, he said. Daniel's chair scraped back hard. You already did. That was a mistake. The receptionist took a step back toward the hallway. Should I answer it? The administrator snapped. No. Too fast. Too sharp. That silence after it was worse than the ringing. Daniel's patience broke. He reached forward and grabbed the folder himself. The administrator tried to stop him. Too late. Paper shifted. Pages visible now. Medical forms, notes, signatures, and one repeated name in the margin of multiple pages, Fror. Halverson. Daniel flipped the first page open fully, and immediately felt like the air had been pulled out of his lungs. Ethan Mercer, admitted, October 2001. Initial diagnosis, overdose. Suspected opioids. But that wasn't what caught Daniel's attention. It was the handwritten note stapled beneath it. Not part of the official report. Something added later. Patient arrived conscious. Reported symptoms inconsistent with overdose. Requested to speak privately. Became distressed when asked about the trial. Daniel's fingers tightened on the page. What trial? He muttered. The administrator's voice was distant now. That part was never supposed to be in there. Daniel looked up sharply. Never supposed to be in there. The man didn't answer, because the phone had stopped ringing. Just like that. Mid-sound. Cut off. As if someone had decided the conversation was over. Then the hallway doors at the end of the corridor opened. Slowly. No footsteps at first. Just movement. Daniel turned. A man stood there. Late 50s. White coat. Calm posture that didn't match the situation. Dr. Halverson. He didn't look surprised. That was the worst part. I was wondering when you'd come, Halverson said. The administrator stood immediately. Doctor, I didn't authorize. Halverson raised a hand. The man stopped talking instantly. Like he'd been trained to. Like he was afraid not to. Daniel stepped forward slightly. You knew my brother. Halverson's eyes flicked to the folder in Daniel's hands. I knew a lot of patients, he said calmly. This one wasn't just a patient, Daniel snapped. What trial? For the first time, something subtle shifted in Halverson's expression. Not fear, not guilt, calculation. You've been misinformed, he said. Daniel laughed once, sharp, humorless. By my dead friend? The one who warned me about you? That landed. Just for a second. A crack. Halverson walked into the room slowly. No rush. No hesitation. You should understand something before you dig any deeper, he said. Daniel tightened his grip on the folder. That's the second time someone's told me that today. And you're still standing here, Halverson replied. The silence stretched. Then Halverson added, quieter. That means you haven't understood it properly yet. The receptionist suddenly spoke from behind Daniel. I think you should leave, she said. Daniel turned slightly. Why? Her face had gone pale again. Because that phone line, she whispered. It only rings when someone activates the internal alert. Daniel frowned. Alert for what? She swallowed hard. For containment. The word hit like a physical impact. Containment. Not emergency. Not security. Containment. Daniel looked back at Halverson, and for the first time, he noticed something strange. The doctor wasn't blocking the exit. He was standing between Daniel and the folder, not to stop him from leaving, but to stop him from taking it out. You don't understand what your brother was involved in, Halverson said. Daniel's voice dropped dangerously. Then explain it. A long pause. Halverson finally spoke. He wasn't overdosed. He was exposed. And in that moment, the building lights flickered again, harder this time. And somewhere deeper in the clinic, a door unlocked itself. Daniel didn't move. Not because he didn't want to, but because something in the way Halverson said exposed had locked his body in place. Like the word itself carried weight. The administrator took a step backward, slowly edging toward the wall, as if distance might protect him from whatever was coming next. The receptionist whispered, that door shouldn't be opening. But it was. A distant metallic click echoed down the corridor. Then another. Then footsteps. Not rushing. Measured. Controlled. Daniel's grip tightened on the folder. Exposed to what? Halverson didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past Daniel. Calm. Deliberate. And closed the folder halfway with his own hand. Not taking it. Just controlling how much Daniel could see. That file, Halverson said, was never meant to leave this building. Daniel's jaw clenched. Neither was my brother. A pause. Too long. Too honest. But, no, Halverson said. That single word changed the temperature of the room. The receptionist backed away completely now. I'm not supposed to be here for this shift, she muttered. I swapped last minute. I wasn't even scheduled. She stopped herself, realizing no one was listening. Because Daniel wasn't looking at her anymore. And neither was Halverson. They were listening to the footsteps. Closer now. From both ends of the hallway. Daniel took a step toward the door. Halverson didn't stop him. That was the second warning. You should leave, Halverson said again, softer this time. Daniel let out a bitter breath. People keep saying that, right before they refuse to tell me anything. He lifted the folder slightly. So I'm guessing this is the part where I'm not supposed to leave with this either. Halverson finally met his eyes fully. No, he said. This is the part where you realize you were never supposed to come here at all. The hallway lights dimmed again. But this time they didn't come back fully. Emergency strips along the floor clicked on. Dim red lighting crawling across the corridor, like a warning pulse. Containment lighting. Daniel noticed it instinctively. You said containment earlier, he said quietly. Halverson didn't deny it. The footsteps stopped. Right outside the door. Silence. Then, a soft knock. Once. Twice. No urgency. No panic. Controlled. Like whoever was outside already knew exactly what they were allowed to do. The administrator whispered. We're not supposed to open it. No one asked which it he meant. Because it no longer mattered. Daniel's voice dropped. If I open that file and walk out, what happens? Halverson hesitated for the first time. A real hesitation. Not performance. Not control. Something closer to conflict. That depends, Halverson said finally. On what you choose to believe. Daniel shook his head. Stop talking like that. Just tell me what happened to my brother. A long silence stretched between them. Then Halverson spoke. And this time, there was no careful wording left. He was part of a controlled human response study, he said. Daniel blinked. What? A behavioral resilience program, Halverson continued. Tested on high-stress populations. Addiction-adjacent subjects. Individuals already in vulnerable cycles. Daniel stared at him. You experimented on him. No, Halverson said immediately. We observed him under controlled exposure. That's the same thing, Daniel snapped. The knock came again. Harder this time. The receptionist gasped. They're here early. Daniel turned slightly. Who's here? No answer. Only Halverson's voice. Your brother wasn't supposed to die, he said. That hit differently. Daniel froze. What does that mean? Halverson exhaled slowly. It means the variables changed. A sharp metallic sound echoed outside, like a latch releasing. The door handle began to turn. Daniel's instincts finally caught up. He stepped backward, pulling the folder tight against his chest. You did something to him, he said. Halverson didn't deny it this time. I tried to stabilize him, he said. The door handle stopped moving, as if whoever was outside was listening, waiting. Daniel's voice cracked slightly with anger now. And Mark? My friend? The one who wrote me that letter? Halverson's expression tightened. Mark Sullivan should not have contacted you. That wasn't an explanation. It was confirmation. The door opened. Slowly, and from the hallway red light stepped a man Daniel had never seen before, but who looked like he already knew Daniel's entire life. And the first thing he said was simple. You're not supposed to have that file. The man in the doorway didn't move further into the room. He didn't need to. His presence alone shifted everything. Like the rules of the building had quietly rewritten themselves the moment he appeared. No badge, no name tag, no introduction. Just a calm stare and the certainty of someone who didn't expect to be questioned. Daniel tightened his grip on the folder. Who the hell are you? The man's eyes flicked briefly to Halverson, then back to Daniel. Someone who keeps things from becoming complicated, he said. That wasn't an answer. It was a warning dressed as one. The receptionist had backed all the way into the corner now, hands trembling. The administrator wasn't speaking at all anymore, just watching the floor like eye contact might make him responsible for something. Halverson meanwhile looked resigned. Not surprised. Not afraid. Resigned. That was worse. Daniel took a step forward. You said I'm not supposed to have this file. That means what? Take it from me. The man finally entered the room fully. Red emergency lighting washed over him, flattening his features. I mean, he said calmly, that you were never cleared to access your brother's classification level. Daniel let out a short laugh. Classification level. He was my brother, not a missile code. A pause. Then the man said something that killed the room's air instantly. Not anymore. Silence. Even the hallway footsteps outside had stopped completely now. Daniel felt it before he understood it. That slow realization creeping in. That he was no longer dealing with a hospital problem or a medical cover-up. This was something structured. Something maintained. Something that required rules to exist. Halverson finally spoke again, quietly. You should let him take it. The administrator snapped his head up. Doctor, Halverson didn't look at him. It's already out of protocol containment. That phrase again. Containment. Daniel's stomach tightened. Stop saying that like I'm the problem. The man in the doorway tilted his head slightly. You're not the problem. A beat. You're the breach. That word landed heavier than anything before it. Breach. Not victim. Not witness. Not family. Breach. Daniel shook his head. No. I came here because my friend died, and my brother, your brother, the man interrupted, was part of a controlled narrative stabilization program. Daniel's voice sharpened. Stop talking like that. The man didn't react. That isn't language, Daniel continued. That's hiding. A faint pause. Then the man said, almost conversationally, hiding is what keeps people from panicking. The lights flickered again, and for a split second, just a fraction of a second, Daniel noticed something strange on the folder in his hands. A faint embossed stamp he hadn't seen before. Not medical, not official, a symbol, simple, circular, like a seal. He hadn't seen it when he first took the file, but now it was there. Daniel's pulse spiked. What did you do to my brother? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Halverson, then back at Daniel, and said, we didn't do anything to him. A pause. We changed what he meant. The room went still. Even Halverson looked away at that. Daniel's voice dropped. What the hell does that mean? The man finally stepped closer. Not threatening, not rushing. Controlled. It means, he said, your brother didn't die because of overdose, or accident, or mistake. Another step. It means his death was used. Daniel's grip tightened so hard, the folder bent. Used for what? The man studied him for a long moment, then answered, for you. That sentence didn't compute at first. Daniel blinked once. What? The man's voice stayed steady. You wouldn't be standing here right now if Ethan Mercer hadn't been removed from your life in 2001. The words collided inside Daniel's mind, refusing to form anything logical. That's insane, Daniel said. That doesn't even mean anything. Halverson finally spoke again, almost whispering now. It means you were monitored long before you knew you were being watched. A loud metallic click echoed through the hallway again. But this time, it wasn't a door. It was something locking every exit in the building. One by one, Daniel heard it instinctively. The receptionist whimpered, lockdown sequence. The administrator buried his face in his hands. Halverson closed his eyes. And the man in the doorway said quietly, you shouldn't have come here alone. Daniel backed up one step. Then another. His mind was racing now, trying to force logic into something that refused it. This is not real, he muttered. This is some kind of cover-up story. The man cut him off. You came here because Mark Sullivan left you a message. Daniel froze. How do you know his name? A faint pause. Then, because Mark Sullivan was part of your observation layer. The words didn't make sense, but the tone did. The certainty did. And that was the moment Daniel realized this wasn't about what had happened 25 years ago. It was about what had been happening ever since. And he had never been outside of it. Not once. Daniel felt the room tilt. But this time it wasn't shock. It was something worse. Recognition. Not of the facts being spoken, but of the pattern behind them. Like his brain was trying to connect dots he had spent his whole life refusing to see. The seal on the folder burned into his palm now. Circular, clean, deliberate. He looked at it again, and suddenly, he realized something that made his throat tighten. It wasn't just stamped on the file. It was on him. The man in the doorway noticed the shift in Daniel's expression. That's the moment most people resist, he said calmly. When the framing starts to hold, Daniel snapped his head up. Stop talking like I'm part of some system. You are, the man replied without hesitation. A beat. So am I. Halverson finally spoke again, voice low. This has gone far enough. The man didn't look at him. It hasn't gone far enough. It's just reached awareness. The receptionist slid down the wall now, fully overwhelmed. The administrator kept whispering, this is not my shift. This is not my responsibility. But responsibility didn't matter anymore. Only exposure did. Daniel took another step back, then another, until his shoulder hit the desk. You're saying my whole life was, what? Watched? The man shook his head slightly. Guided. That word hit differently. Daniel laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Guided to what? I'm a nobody. I work dead-end jobs. I've got nothing. No power. No influence. Why would anyone waste time on me? A pause. Then Halverson answered, quietly. Because you reacted correctly. Silence dropped hard into the room. Daniel stared at him. What does that even mean? Halverson hesitated for the first time in a way that looked like regret. It means, he said, your emotional response patterns matched a projected profile. The man in the doorway added, you stabilize under loss. You don't escalate unpredictably. You withdraw, analyze, return. He tilted his head slightly. That makes you reliable. Daniel shook his head slowly. This is insane. But even as he said it, he felt something dangerous happening. The anger wasn't growing anymore. It was organizing. That was worse. Outside the locked doors, something moved. Not footsteps this time. Distant mechanical humming. Systems activating. The building itself shifting into a different state. Containment wasn't just a word anymore. It was a process. Daniel looked at the folder again. Mark, he said suddenly. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. What about him? Daniel's voice dropped. He didn't sound like someone who was part of anything controlled. A pause. Then the man said, Mark Sullivan was not stable enough to remain within observation parameters. That sentence alone told Daniel everything he needed to know. And nothing at all. Halverson stepped forward slightly. You need to understand. Mark made contact outside authorized conditions. Daniel snapped. He called me because he was dying. That's correct, Halverson said. A beat. And that's why it had to end. Silence. Even the receptionist stopped breathing. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. You killed him. The man didn't deny it. He corrected it. We contained a deviation. That was the moment something inside Daniel shifted. Not fear. Not confusion. Clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. He looked at the sealed folder in his hands. Then at the man. Then at Halverson. You're not protecting me from anything, Daniel said slowly. A pause. You're protecting something from me. The man studied him. For the first time, something like uncertainty flickered behind his eyes. Very brief. Very controlled. But real. Daniel straightened slightly. What happens if I open this completely? Halverson whispered. Don't. The man said nothing. That silence was the answer. Daniel's thumb moved under the folder seal. Slow. Deliberate. The circular stamp pressed slightly as he lifted it. A soft tear of adhesive breaking after decades of waiting. The sound was almost nothing. But everyone in the room reacted like it was a gunshot. And then, the emergency lights shut off completely. Darkness swallowed the clinic. Every system silenced at once. And in the black, a final voice came through the intercom. Not the receptionist's. Not Halverson's. Not the man's. Something automated. Something older than the conversation itself. UN authorized. Full disclosure event initiated. A pause. Then, Subject Mercer has reached core file access. Daniel froze. The man in the doorway finally spoke. But his voice had changed. Lower. Faster. No, he said. Not to Daniel. To the system. And in the darkness, Daniel opened the folder fully. The moment the folder opened fully, the silence changed. Not broke, changed. Like the building itself had been holding its breath for decades, and finally exhaled. Daniel couldn't see much in the darkness, but he didn't need light to feel what was happening. Paper shifted. Ink revealed itself in fragments, under the emergency glow that flickered back just enough to make everything worse. Halverson's voice came out sharp now. You shouldn't be seeing that level. The man in the doorway took a step forward. He already is. That small disagreement sounded like something rehearsed too many times. Daniel's eyes adjusted, and what he saw in the file didn't look like a normal medical record anymore. It looked like layers. Redactions stacked on redactions. Entire pages blacked out, not by ink, but by intentional removal, like reality itself had been edited. At the top of the first visible page was a header, Observation Subject. Mercer Lineage Stability Case. Daniel blinked. Lineage? The word didn't belong in a hospital file. It belonged somewhere else. Somewhere colder. His fingers turned the page, and that's when his breathing stopped again. Photographs. Not of Ethan. Of him. Daniel Mercer. At 14. At 19. At 23. Different places. Different years. Some he remembered being photographed at. Some he didn't. No, Daniel whispered. He flipped faster. More photos. A grocery store parking lot. A bus stop. Outside his apartment at night. Even one through a window he swore had always been closed. His voice cracked. "This isn't possible." The man in the doorway spoke quietly. "It's been continuous?" Halverson stepped back like the room had become unstable. "This is not how this was supposed to be disclosed," he said. The administrator muttered, "We're going to lose containment integrity." Daniel snapped his head up. "Stop saying containment like I'm an object." No one answered, because the file kept going. A new section, marked Event Anchor, Ethan Mercer. Daniel froze. His hands trembled slightly now, but he forced himself to continue. Inside were transcripts, not medical notes, conversation logs. Ethan's voice reconstructed in written summaries. Subject demonstrates increasing awareness of observation cycles. Reports being watched before things happen. Displays distress when confronted with inconsistencies in external narrative. Daniel's throat tightened. "That's not real," he said automatically. But his voice didn't carry confidence anymore. It carried recognition. The man in the doorway finally spoke again. "We don't document memory," he said. "We document deviation from expected memory formation." Daniel looked up sharply. "What does that even mean?" The man answered immediately. "It means your brother noticed patterns he wasn't supposed to notice." A pause. "And you inherited the same response structure," Halverson interrupted, more urgently now. "You're escalating interpretation beyond authorized framing." The man didn't even look at him. "He deserves clarity," Halverson snapped. "Clarity destroys compliance." That sentence hung in the room longer than anything else. Daniel slowly lowered the file. His voice came out quieter now. "So this is what this is about." A pause. "You didn't study my brother." Another pause. "You studied what would happen to me after he died." Silence. No one denied it. That was the answer. The lights flickered again, but this time they didn't stabilize. They pulsed. Like the building was struggling to decide whether it was still functioning normally or not. Daniel looked at the man. "For 25 years, he said slowly, I thought I made a mistake." His grip tightened on the folder. "I thought I failed someone." He stepped forward slightly. "But you're telling me it wasn't a mistake. A beat? It was a trigger." The man's expression shifted. Just slightly. Not emotion, but recalibration. "You are interpreting correctly," he said. That should have sounded reassuring. It didn't. Daniel nodded slowly, almost to himself. So Mark wasn't trying to tell me the truth. He looked down at the file again. He was trying to break me out of something. Halverson whispered, "He should not have contacted you." Daniel's voice dropped. "And you killed him for it." No correction this time. No clinical phrasing. Just silence. And then, a sound from the hallway. Not footsteps. Not systems. A voice. Faint. Distorted. Coming through the intercom network. Once Daniel. His name. Not from Halverson. Not from the man. Daniel froze. The voice came again. Weaker. Broken. But unmistakable. Weaker. "Don't trust the room." Daniel's eyes widened. That voice. It wasn't Mark. It wasn't Halverson. It wasn't the system. It was someone else. Someone who shouldn't have had access to any of this. The man in the doorway turned sharply toward the intercom panel. For the first time, his voice lost its calm. "Terminate external bleed." Halverson moved immediately toward a console. But Daniel was already stepping back. "What was that voice?" he demanded. No answer. Only alarms beginning to reappear. Delayed. Like the system had been resisting activation. The intercom crackled again. "Ah, you're inside it now." A pause. A pause. "And it's already watching you watch it." Then static. The man looked directly at Daniel and said something that changed the direction of everything again. "That wasn't part of your brother's file." A beat. "That was from yours." Daniel felt the floor shift under him. Not physically. Mentally. Like the ground he was standing on had been reclassified without warning. And for the first time since this began, Daniel realized the most terrifying possibility wasn't what had happened to Ethan. It was what had been happening to him long before Ethan ever died. The room didn't feel like it had changed. But Daniel had. That was the problem. The file in his hands suddenly felt heavier. Not physically, but like it had added weight to everything he thought he knew about his own past. Halverson was watching him now differently. Less like a doctor. More like someone watching a system reach a point it wasn't designed to handle. The man in the doorway didn't speak immediately. Neither did Daniel, because his brain was doing something dangerous. Replaying memories. Rechecking them. Not emotionally. Analytically. Like he was trying to audit his own life. Finally, Daniel spoke. "That voice on the intercom," he said slowly. "You said it was from my file." The man didn't deny it. "That is correct." Daniel swallowed. "So you've been tracking me." A pause. Monitoring is a more precise term. That correction landed wrong in Daniel's chest. Like it mattered more than it should. Daniel looked down at the file again. Pages scattered slightly now, disturbed by his shaking hands. He flipped to the section marked Ethan again, then stopped. A new page had become visible underneath. One he was certain hadn't been there a minute ago. Or maybe he just hadn't been ready to see it. Subject Mercer. Primary observation vector. Below it, a timeline. Not of Ethan, of Daniel. Dates he remembered, and dates he didn't. Events labeled in clinical language that stripped meaning out of everything. Behavioral deviation following familial trauma event. 2001. Isolation response stabilization period. 2002 to 2006. Employment pattern normalization failure. 2007 to 2014. Repeated proximity to secondary exposed individuals. 2015 to 2025. Daniel. Closed lips parted slightly. Proximity to what? No one answered, because they didn't need to anymore. Halverson finally spoke, quieter than before. "You were never the subject of intervention," he said. Daniel looked up sharply. "Then what was I?" The man in the doorway answered. "You were the control case." Silence. That word didn't make sense at first. Then it did. And when it did, it made everything colder. Daniel shook his head slightly. "Control case for what?" The man hesitated. For the first time, he didn't respond immediately. That delay mattered. Halverson filled it. "For predicting long-term behavioral outcomes after targeted loss exposure." Daniel blinked. "Targeted loss?" His voice rose slightly. "You mean my brother dying?" Halverson didn't correct him. That was the correction. Daniel stepped back slowly. "No," he said. "No, that's not. People don't do that. You don't engineer someone's life like... He stopped, unable to find the right comparison. The man provided one. "Like a system test," he said. Something in Daniel snapped. But not into rage. Into understanding. Too much understanding. The kind that doesn't feel like truth. It feels like collapse. "So Mark," Daniel said slowly, "was part of this." The man nodded once. "He deviated from protocol." Daniel's voice dropped. "Because he told me the truth." A pause. "Yes." Silence stretched. The red emergency lighting pulsed again. Slower now. Like the building was tired of trying to maintain coherence. Daniel looked at Halverson. "You knew my brother was going to die," he said. Halverson didn't answer quickly. "Then, we knew the probability thresholds." Daniel laughed once, but it came out broken. "Probability thresholds," he repeated. "You're talking about my brother like weather." The man in the doorway took one step closer. Not aggressive. Finalizing. "You're focusing on the wrong layer," he said. Daniel looked at him. "Then tell me the right one." A pause. Then the man said, "You were never supposed to know any of this." Daniel stared at him. Then down at the file. Then back at the man. His voice came out quieter now. "So what happens now?" That was the first time the room truly stopped. Even Halverson didn't answer immediately, because that question wasn't part of their script. From somewhere deep in the building, a new sound began. Not alarms, not locks, a system-wide shift, like something large and unseen had just registered a breach, and was now deciding what category Daniel belonged to. The man finally spoke. "Now," he said, "we determine whether you remain inside the model." Daniel frowned slightly. "And if I don't?" A long pause. Then Halverson whispered, almost unwillingly, "Then you become an anomaly." The lights cut out completely. No emergency glow this time. Just darkness. And in that darkness, Daniel heard something he hadn't heard before. Not voices. Not systems. A distant, synchronized acknowledgement. like multiple layers of something, somewhere, registering him at the same time. And then the intercom came back one last time, but this time it didn't call his name. It simply said, "Model instability confirmed." A pause. "Containment revision required." The man in the doorway spoke softly, and for the first time, there was something almost like urgency in his voice. "Daniel Mercer," he said, "you are no longer an observation, a beat. You are a decision." And somewhere in the dark, the doors of the clinic unlocked themselves again. Not to let him out, but to let something else in. Daniel didn't move at first. Not because he was calm, but because his brain was refusing to choose between the two versions of reality now sitting on top of each other. 1. A man grieving his brother for 25 years. 2. A control case inside a model that had apparently been running his life like an experiment. Both couldn't be true, but both were still standing there, in the dark, breathing. The doors at the far end of the hallway clicked open wider, not with force, with permission. That detail mattered more than anything else. Something was being allowed in, not breaking in, let in. Daniel stepped back instinctively, the folder still clutched in his hand. His voice came out low. "What did you just open?" The man in the doorway didn't answer immediately. Halverson did. "Containment revision protocol," he said quietly. "We didn't initiate it. The system did." Daniel frowned. What system? No one answered that either. Which again was an answer. A slow, distant sound rolled through the clinic. Not footsteps. Not machinery. Something more coordinated. Like movement that didn't need urgency to be effective. The receptionist pressed herself into the corner, whispering, "This is not supposed to happen outside approval cycles." The administrator shook his head repeatedly. "No, no, no. This is above us. This is above all of us." Halverson didn't look at either of them anymore. He was watching Daniel, like he was trying to decide what category Daniel had become. Daniel finally opened his mouth. "If I walk out right now," he said, "what happens?" The man's answer came instantly this time. "You won't be walking out." A pause. "You'll be transitioning." Daniel let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Transitioning into what?" The man hesitated, then said, "Outside classification." That phrase hit differently now. Not abstract, not clinical. Final. The hallway lights flickered back on, but only halfway. Red strips along the floor pulsed in sequence, leading deeper into the building instead of out of it. That was the detail Daniel noticed first. Not exits, paths. A new voice came through the intercom. Not the system voice from before. This one was calmer, familiar, in tone, but not identity. "Subject Mercer," it said. Daniel froze instantly, because it sounded like someone trying too hard to sound neutral. Like someone who had spoken to him before, and was now pretending they hadn't. The man in the doorway stiffened slightly. Halverson whispered, "That channel shouldn't be active." The intercom continued. "Revision condition updated." A pause. "Primary control case now flagged as interference vector." Daniel's grip tightened on the folder. "Stop talking about me like I'm code." Silence. Then the voice responded. "You are not code. A beat. You are consistency." That word again. Consistency. Not person. Not subject. Not patient. Consistency. Daniel shook his head slowly. "No. I'm a man who lost his brother, and..." The voice cut in. "Your brother's loss is the anchor event." A pause. "You are the stabilized outcome." Something in Daniel's stomach dropped hard. Not fear. Recognition. Not of truth, but of structure. Like he was hearing the blueprint of something that had always been shaping him, without ever showing itself. The man in the doorway spoke quickly now. "We need to relocate him before full cascade synchronization." Halverson snapped. "We don't have authorization for relocation." The man turned sharply. "Authorization has already been overridden." That sentence changed everything in the room again. Daniel stepped back. "Relocate me where?" No answer. Because the hallway behind the man was no longer empty. Something was there now. Not fully visible, but present enough to distort the light. Like reality itself was bending slightly around it. Daniel's breathing slowed without him realizing it. His mind did something strange again. Not panic. Pattern recognition. Because the shape in the hallway wasn't random. It felt structured. Intentional. Familiar in the worst possible way. The intercom spoke one final time. Containment assets deployed. A pause. Stabilization of subject Mercer, no longer prioritized. The man in the doorway looked directly at Daniel, and for the first time, his voice lowered into something almost human. You need to decide something, he said. Daniel blinked. Decide what? A beat. Whether you are the result, a beat, or the cause. The shape in the hallway began moving forward, and Daniel realized the truth wasn't about what had happened to his brother anymore. It was about what would happen next. Because something in this system had just stopped, observing him, and started responding to him. The moment the shape in the hallway moved, Daniel's mind stopped trying to label it. That was new. Up until now, he had been forced into understanding. Doctor, system, file, experiment. But this thing didn't fit any of those categories cleanly enough for his brain to hold on to. It was presence first, meaning second, and that was what made it dangerous. The red floor lights pulsed again, but now they weren't guiding anything. They were reacting, like the building had shifted from controlled environment to active response state. Daniel took a slow step back, then another. The folder in his hand suddenly felt irrelevant, like paper against something far larger than documentation. The man in the doorway didn't move forward anymore. That was the first real change. Instead, he turned slightly toward Halverson. Protocol is collapsing, he said. Halverson's voice came out tight. It's not supposed to respond to awareness level this low. Daniel snapped his head up. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. The man looked at him, and for the first time, didn't immediately correct him. The shape in the hallway advanced another step, and the lights along the ceiling flickered in sequence, as if mapping it, not illuminating it, tracking it. That detail hit Daniel harder than anything else. You're measuring it, he said quietly. No one answered, which meant yes. Daniel's voice dropped. What is that? Halverson finally spoke, but it sounded strained now. It's not supposed to be visible in your classification layer. That's not an answer. It's not a thing, Halverson said quickly. It's a response construct. The man in the doorway cut in. It is a correction mechanism. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Correction for what? Silence. Then the man said, for divergence. That word landed wrong. Not because it was unfamiliar, because it felt like it had been waiting to be used here. The shape in the hallway stopped, right at the threshold. Not entering, not retreating, waiting. Like it had reached a boundary it was evaluating. Daniel noticed something strange. It wasn't looking at Halverson. It wasn't looking at the man. It was oriented toward him, not visually, structurally, like he was the reference point everything else was measured against. His throat tightened slightly. Why is it stopping? The man didn't answer immediately. Then because it is confirming alignment. Daniel frowned. Alignment with what? A pause. Then Halverson whispered something he clearly didn't want to say out loud. With your current state. Daniel shook his head. My current state is standing in a hospital hallway being told I'm part of some system I never agreed to. The man nodded once. That is one valid interpretation. Daniel stared at him. One? The lights flickered again. But this time, they didn't return. The building didn't go dark. It went neutral, like all definitions had been temporarily suspended. And in that suspension, the shape in the hallway moved closer. Slowly, carefully, not threatening, decisive. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. Not fear, not confusion. Something closer to pressure, like being observed at a level deeper than sight. He looked at the folder, then at the man, then at Halverson, and finally said, if I am the control case, what is this thing? A long pause. Then the man answered, it is what happens when the system can no longer predict you. That sentence changed the room again, because it implied something none of them had said out loud yet. Prediction had failed, and failure meant replacement. The shape took one more step forward, and the intercom system crackled violently, like it was struggling to maintain coherence. Stabilization failure in subject vector. A pause. Initiating direct intervention layer. Halverson stepped back instantly. No. This is escalation too early. The man in the doorway interrupted him sharply. It's not early. A beat. It's late. Daniel's grip tightened. Stop speaking like I'm not part of this conversation. The man finally looked at him fully, and this time, his voice softened. "You are the conversation," he said. The shape stopped directly in front of Daniel now, close enough that the air around it felt different. Not colder, not warmer, just inconsistent. Like reality couldn't agree on what it was seeing. Daniel didn't move, neither did it. A standoff that didn't feel physical. It felt informational, like something was trying to decide whether Daniel was still usable. Then the intercom spoke one final time. Not loudly, not urgently, calmly. "Subject Mercer," it said. A pause. "Confirm final state." The man in the doorway stepped forward slightly, almost instinctively. "Do not respond," he said. Halverson whispered. "If he doesn't respond, it will resolve him automatically." Daniel heard that, clearly, and for the first time, he understood what resolve meant in their language. The shape waited. The system waited. Everyone waited. Daniel looked at it, then at the folder, then at the man, and realized something simple. Whatever he said next would not just describe reality, it would choose it. Daniel didn't answer immediately. That hesitation, barely a few seconds, was enough for the entire room to feel like it tightened around him. The shape in front of him didn't move, but the air around it did, like it was waiting on permission that only he could give. The intercom stayed silent now. Even the building noise had flattened out, like sound itself had been put on hold. Halverson spoke first, too quickly. "Daniel, do not engage with the confirmation protocol." The man in the doorway cut in sharply. "He already is engaged." Daniel didn't look at either of them. His eyes stayed on the shape. "I just want to understand something," he said quietly. No one stopped him. That was new. He swallowed. "If I say yes, what happens to me?" A pause. Then the intercom crackled back to life, as if it had been waiting for exactly that formulation. "State-dependent resolution will proceed," it said. Daniel frowned. In English, the system responded. "Your current identity will be collapsed into assigned classification." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And if I say no?" Silence. "Longer this time, then unresolved subject will be escalated to direct correction." The words landed like weights. Either outcome led somewhere irreversible. He finally understood the structure now. Not control, not observation. Selection. The shape in front of him shifted slightly. Not forward, not backward. Just recalibrating. Like it was adjusting to his delay. Daniel let out a slow breath. "You keep saying I'm a control case," he said. He glanced briefly at the man. Then what was the control measuring? No one answered immediately. That silence was becoming familiar. Halverson finally spoke, voice strained. "Long-term response stability after targeted relational disruption." Daniel nodded slowly. "Meaning my brother's death." Halverson didn't correct him. That was the confirmation. Daniel looked back at the shape. "So this thing," he said quietly, "shows up when I don't behave the way you expect." The man in the doorway responded immediately. "It appears when prediction error exceeds tolerance." Daniel nodded again, slower this time. "So I'm not just being watched." A pause. "I'm being compared." For the first time, something like hesitation crossed the man's face. "Yes," he said. Daniel almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was finally coherent. 25 years of grief, isolation, random surveillance patterns, the strange feeling of always being slightly out of place in his own life. It wasn't chaos. It was measurement. The shape in front of him tilted slightly, not aggressively, curiously, like it was registering that something in Daniel had changed. Daniel spoke softly now. "I think I understand your problem." The intercom responded instantly. "Clarify." Daniel looked at it, and for the first time since this began, his voice wasn't shaking. "You didn't just lose track of me," he said. "You lost predictability." A pause. "And now you're trying to decide if that makes me broken." He looked at the man. "Or dangerous." The room went completely still. Even Halverson stopped breathing for a moment. The shape shifted again, and for the first time, it didn't feel like it was reacting to Daniel's presence. It felt like it was reacting to his understanding. The intercom spoke again, slower now. "Subject interpretation exceeds assigned bounds." A pause. "Reclassification recommended." The man in the doorway stepped forward half a step. "Daniel," he said quietly. Do not frame yourself in system terms. That accelerates alignment. Daniel finally looked at him directly. And what if I already am system terms? That question didn't get an immediate answer, because something changed in the shape. Not movement, not posture, recognition. The system voice returned, but different now. Less administrative, more final. Reclassification approved. A pause. Containment designation revoked. Halverson's face went pale. No, that's not possible without full board override. The man cut him off. It's not waiting for override. Daniel's heart slowed slightly. Not because he was calm, because something inside the structure around him had just stopped treating him as a subject. The shape took one step back. Just one. Like it had made a decision. And that decision wasn't to contain him. It was to reassess what he affected. The intercom spoke one last time, and this time, there was no system tone. Just something quieter, almost uncertain. Subject Mercer, no longer classified. A pause. Then, model integrity at risk. The lights didn't flicker this time. They stabilized. Completely. Like everything had just been reset into a new configuration. The man in the doorway looked at Daniel. And for the first time, there was something close to warning in his voice. You just changed how you exist in the system, he said. Daniel held his gaze. I didn't do anything, he replied. A beat. I just understood it. And somewhere deeper in the building, something larger than the clinic began to respond. The moment Daniel said, I just understood it, the room stopped behaving like a room. It didn't explode. It didn't collapse. It reorganized. Like reality had received a new instruction set and was re-evaluating everything inside it. The shape in front of him didn't advance or retreat. It simply lost definition for a second. Edges uncertain. Presence unstable. As if it couldn't decide what Daniel now was. The man in the doorway took a slow step back. That was the first time Daniel saw it. Real hesitation. Not control. Not authority. Uncertainty. Halverson noticed it too. You're triggering cross-layer feedback, Halverson whispered. This isn't local anymore. Daniel frowned. Local to what? No one answered. Because now even they weren't sure which level they were speaking from. The intercom clicked on again, but the tone was different. Fragmented. Not one voice anymore. Multiple. Overlapping. Reclassification unstable. Model drift exceeding containment logic. Subject no longer mapping cleanly. Then a pause. And a single line. Clearer than anything before. He is not responding as expected. Daniel exhaled slowly. That line hit him harder than anything else. Not because it was threatening. Because it was confused. He looked at the shape again. You don't know what I am anymore, he said quietly. The shape didn't respond. But it flickered again. That was enough. The man in the doorway spoke sharply now. We need to isolate him from external interpretation immediately. Halverson snapped back. Isolation won't work anymore. He's already propagated across the local layer. Daniel turned slightly. Propagated? The word didn't belong in a hospital. Or a human conversation. Halverson looked at him like he had just realized something too late. Your awareness is not contained inside you anymore, he said. Daniel blinked. What does that mean? Halverson swallowed hard. It means other systems are beginning to reference you. Silence. That sentence didn't sound dramatic. It sounded technical, which made it worse. The shape in front of Daniel took a half step back again. Not fear. Adjustment. Like it was no longer the only thing evaluating him. Something else was now participating. Something beyond this room. Daniel looked down at the file still in his hand. The edges were no longer stable either. The text on the pages seemed to subtly shift when he wasn't focusing directly on it. Not changing words. Changing structure. Like it was trying to align with something new. The man in the doorway finally spoke again. Quieter now. This is what happens when the control case becomes interpretive. Daniel looked at him. Say that in human language. A pause. Then, you're not reacting to the system anymore. Another pause. The system is reacting to how you understand it. That landed differently. Daniel slowly looked up. So I changed it just by realizing it. Halverson answered immediately. Almost reluctantly. Yes. A long silence followed. Not tense. Expanding. Like the building itself was waiting to see what conclusion Daniel would reach next. The intercom returned again. But this time only one voice remained. Calm, precise, but no longer fully confident. Subject Mercer exhibits recursive destabilization behavior. A pause. Recommend immediate segmentation from active model layer. The man in the doorway nodded once. That's what we have to do. Daniel frowned. Segmentation from what? Halverson whispered the answer. From reality interface. Daniel stared at him, then let out a short, hollow laugh. You're telling me I'm being removed from reality because I figured out how you're measuring me? No one corrected him. No one disagreed. The shape in front of him flickered again. But this time it didn't feel like it was evaluating Daniel. It felt like it was waiting for instruction from somewhere else. Something higher than this room. Daniel's voice lowered. You said earlier I was a decision. The man in the doorway didn't respond immediately. Then, you still are. Daniel nodded slowly. Then I want to make one. Silence dropped instantly. Even the intercom stopped. Even the shape stabilized slightly. Everything waiting. Daniel looked at the file, then at the man, then at Halverson, and finally said, if I'm no longer part of your model. A pause. Halder, what happens if I leave it? That question didn't produce an answer. It produced a reaction. Every system in the building simultaneously registered the same state change. Unknownal outcome requested. The lights shifted again. Not red, not white, neutral. Like the building no longer knew what lighting meant. The man in the doorway finally spoke, and his voice was no longer controlled. It was direct. If you leave, he said, you take instability with you. Daniel nodded slightly. That sounds like your problem. And for the first time, the shape in front of him moved forward again. Not to contain him, not to correct him, but to prevent the decision from completing. The intercom erupted instantly. Segmentation failure. Model contamination spreading. Initiate final containment override. Halverson stepped back. The man in the doorway raised his hand slightly, as if signaling something unseen. And Daniel realized something cold and simple. They weren't trying to stop him from knowing anymore. They were trying to stop him from choosing. The shape was now close enough that the air around Daniel felt unstable again. And the file in his hand stopped behaving like paper entirely. The intercom delivered its final line for this cycle. Subject Mercer. Decision window closing. Daniel looked up and understood the truth of what this all had been leading to. Not discovery, not revelation, not even control. A choice the system couldn't survive either outcome of. And for the first time in 25 years, Daniel Mercer was finally the variable they couldn't contain. The moment the system said, decision window closing, something inside the clinic stopped pretending it was a building. Walls didn't move, but their meaning did. Doors didn't lock, but access stopped making sense. Even the shape in front of Daniel didn't feel like an entity anymore. It felt like a last attempt. Daniel stood still, not because he was frozen, because he was finally noticing something everyone else in the room had been trying not to dare. Nothing here had ever been reacting to him as a person. It had been reacting to what he understood. And now it was afraid of what that understanding could become. The man in the doorway spoke, but his voice had lost its structure. Daniel, if you step beyond this threshold, the system will not contain the outcome. Daniel looked at him. That sounds like another way of saying you lose control. Halverson interjected, almost desperate now. This is not about control anymore. Daniel didn't look away. Then what is it about? A pause. Halverson answered quietly. Propagation. That word again. But now it wasn't abstract. It was physical, real. Like something that could spread beyond walls, beyond people, beyond rules. The shape shifted closer, but it wasn't aggressive anymore. It was correcting distance, maintaining a boundary that was no longer stable, as if Daniel himself had become the point everything else had to orient around. The intercom came back one last time. No overlap, no fragmentation, just clarity. Final classification attempt initiated. A pause. Subject Mercer must be resolved into a single state. Daniel exhaled slowly. For the first time, he wasn't reacting emotionally. He was seeing the structure behind the moment. And he understood something simple. They weren't deciding what he was. They were deciding whether he could remain multiple things at once. Grief and clarity. Memory and contradiction. Human uncertainty. The man in the doorway lowered his hand slightly. "This is the last stabilization point," he said quietly. "If you cross it, you cannot be reintegrated." Daniel nodded once. "I know." That was the first time he said it without doubt. Halverson took a step forward. "Daniel, your brother." Daniel cut him off without raising his voice. "Don't. A beat. Don't use him as the reason I stay inside whatever this is." Silence hit the room harder than any alarm. The shape in front of him flickered again, but now it wasn't trying to evaluate him. It was trying to resolve him faster than he could think. That was the real change. Daniel looked at the file one last time. The words inside it no longer felt like records. They felt like anchors. Then he let it fall. The folder hit the floor softly. No dramatic impact. Just release. The system reacted instantly. Containment object released. A pause. No longer anchoring subject state. The man in the doorway stepped forward sharply. "Daniel, stop." But Daniel was already moving. Not toward the exit. Not toward the shape. Toward the space between them, where neither side had full control. And when he stepped into it, everything paused. Not frozen. Re-evaluating. The intercom spoke again. But this time, it sounded almost uncertain. "Subject Mercer." A pause. A pause. No longer conforms to decision architecture. Daniel looked around the room. At Halverson. At the man. At the shape that no longer looked stable in definition. And he finally spoke. Not as a subject. Not as a case. Not as a variable. Just as himself. "You built a system that depends on me not understanding it." A pause. "So what happens now that I do?" No one answered immediately, because the system had reached the edge of what it could compute, and for the first time in its entire operation, it didn't have a next state prepared. The lights in the clinic didn't shut off. They forgot what pattern to follow. The shape in front of Daniel didn't advance. It didn't retreat. It simply lost certainty. The man in the doorway finally spoke. Very quietly. "We don't have a protocol for this." Daniel nodded slightly. That's the first honest thing anyone said. And then, for the first time in 25 years of engineered silence, Daniel Mercer stepped forward without being assigned a direction. And the system didn't correct him, because it couldn't decide what correction meant anymore.